I started examining 700 what I consider to be luminaries and how did they become the 25% who have crafted this life that they've always desired to live. And people I've studied were Oprah Winfrey and Jim McKelvey, who started Square, Derek Jeter, Bono, the lead singer for U2, Hilary
You
Swank
too.
are just a few examples. But I kept coming back to finding that there were these principles that I kept seeing them implement in their own lives again and again and again that led them to create this life where they were willing to pursue their dream regardless of what people thought about them, regardless of what the societal expectations were, regardless of the daunting risks that lay in front of them, because they were so passionate and intentional about pursuing it that they were willing to do whatever it took to achieve it.
Our guest today is a keynote speaker, author, combat veteran, and host of the #1 ranked alternative health podcast, Passion Struck, which has garnered over 27 plus million downloads and is listened to in 169 countries. And I think he's slacking a little bit, because there's 195 countries in the world. So he's got a little work to do still. His story is compelling and inspiring, and I'm excited to bring him to you right now. Welcome to the show, John Miles.
Hey, Mike, it's great to see you again. So honored to be a part of the show. And I know you're big on ethics and everything else. So that's why I had to be precise in that 169 country number.
I do appreciate the being authentic with our audience and telling the truth. This is a show where you can come and get that, right? We're authentic in our stories, and I appreciate you. I just had to rib you a little bit because, 27 plus million downloads. You got all these accolades and all the cool things you've been doing. I had to find a hole somewhere. That was about as tiny of a hole as you could find in somebody's backstory. And you did mention a little secret there. You said, again, welcome back again. Well, this is a second attempt at this, guys. And if anyone in the podcasting space knows, sometimes you run into technology and there's different things that happen in life and in entrepreneurship. And we're going to talk about that today because when you get to a roadblock, it doesn't end your story. You just end up going around it. You get help. There's resources, there's tools, and you continue moving forward, right? So we continue to move forward. We rescheduled for today, and we're going to rock and roll. And I want you guys to know that John has we've talked about his podcast. Passion Struck is also his book. You go to passionstruck.com. His book came out February 6th of 2024. And with podcasts, these things live forever. So whenever you're tuning into this, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the copy of Passion Struck right there up on the screen. JohnRMiles.com. All of that's clickable in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about spelling his name or looking for that. Check it out there. And as I mentioned, the new book is called Passion Struck, 12 Powerful Principles to Unlock Your Purpose and Ignite Your Most Intentional Life. We're going to talk about intentionality, fulfillment today. That's the topic. Many topics that we're going to cover, but that's where I'd like to get started. And John, as you know, I always like to start the episodes off with like a Genesis story. You have this interesting background, including Fortune 500 executive, you're a decorated veteran, and now you're an author. Focus on personal growth. So I'd love you to share your story and kind of what prompted your own reinvention in that search for purpose.
Yeah, so Mike, I think ever since I can remember, I was always drawn to leadership and tried to pursue it from the earliest age I can remember, whether that was trying to get a job at the local grocery store, becoming the team captain when I was in high school. And so when the opportunity came to pick which college I was going to go to, and I had the ability to go to the Naval Academy, it just aligned with this whole passion that I had, because I thought, what better place on earth could you learn about leadership than one of the places that's built specifically to do it? So I did that, graduated from the Naval Academy, was a naval officer, and I would say that at times life hits you with things that you just don't expect. And my career started out that way once I left the military, because I had originally left to join the FBI, become a special agent, literally 48 hours before my class is supposed to get underway, I get a call that Congress doesn't pass the budget. I'm recycled. Class doesn't come back for another couple years. And at that point, I had to pivot, and I ended up pivoting into business consulting, and it ended up being the foundation for the senior executive I ended up becoming. But you asked
Wow.
about how I went from there to where I am today, and what I say
Yeah,
is
the
that,
stepping stones.
yeah, and what I say is that I'm a recovering senior executive because I found myself, like probably many of your listeners are, I was a high achiever. I was striving to hit every single notch on the ladder that I could on the path to growth. And eventually, my aspiration was to become initially a CIO, and then I hoped I could position myself from there to take on other COO roles and eventually become a CEO. But what I discovered along this path is that the things that I was chasing, the accolades, the career growth, what I thought was these measurements of success, ended up not to be the measurements of success that truly mattered. And as I reached the apex, I was the CIO of a Fortune 50 company. I
Mm,
experienced this profound sense of unmattering. And I really
wow.
started questioning what the hell was I doing, spending
Yeah.
these countless hours making other people's dreams come true, but finding myself further and further away from the dreams that I really had inside.
Wow. And so that right there is kind of the definition of passion struck. That was the moment right there that kind of started it all.
Well, that was the moment that I understood that I was at kind of the opposite of being passion struck. And
So that's the beginning of the search for yourself. Like you knew something was either missing, not wrong necessarily, just missing. You had this high level of success, Fortune 50 company. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that, right? And yet there was something, let's call it lacking, right, that you were in search of. So that was the beginning of the search there. How would you define passion struck for someone who's tuning in? Maybe they haven't heard your show yet. Maybe they're mic'd up audience listener, and they're like, "Man, I really want to know John's the meaning behind his book," and they're about to get it and dive in. What does it mean to you to be passion struck? I know it's more than just a cool title. It's almost not necessarily a movement, but it's a way of mindset. It's a way of life that you live.
yeah, I think you've nailed a critical element, and that is that it's not as if you become passion struck and then it's a stopping point. Passion struck is
Yeah.
really a way of life to attain. And the reason I came up with this is there's some pretty startling statistics out there. One of the ones I like to cite is a 2018 research report that came out of Cornell University, and they ended up examining thousands of people who were nearing the end of life, and they asked them what their biggest regret was in life. 76% of them came back and said that the biggest regret that they ever had was not fulfilling their ideal self. It's
Yeah.
basically the regret of an unlived life. And the fact of the
You
matter
can't go
is,
back. Once you're at the end, it's like you have that moment where you reflect back on it. So we're trying to help people be proactive, right?
right, and it
Catch this. And,
it led me to the how I start out the book, which is quoting Henry David Thoreau. One of my favorite quotes is that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. So, how do you break out of that? And so I started examining 700 what I consider to be luminaries, and how did they become the 25% who have crafted this life that they've always desired to live. And people I've studied were Oprah Winfrey and Jim McKelvey, who started Square, Derek Jeter, Bono, the lead singer for U2, Hilary
you
Swank
too.
are just a few examples. But I kept coming back to finding that there were these principles that I kept seeing them implement in their own lives again and again and again. that led them to create this life where they were willing to pursue their dream regardless of what people thought about them, regardless of what the societal expectations were, regardless of the daunting risks that lay in front of them, because they were so passionate and intentional about pursuing it that they were willing to do whatever it took to achieve it. And to me, that's at the core of what it means to be passion struck.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. I mean, those are some incredible names. I was looking at your list. I know Seth Godin, Mike McAllowitz, you astronaut Wendy Lawrence, to name a couple others. We're not here to name drop, but it's real stories, real people that you can resonate with. And we know that they got to their level. Like Derek Jeter, I have his book as well. My dad raised me a Yankees fan I say back in the day, but at the time it was, late 80s, early 90s, and they weren't quite there yet. And then I got to experience them getting to the World Series in 96, and then they won it 96, as you know, 98, 99, 2000. So I had a great childhood with all these championships, and Jeter became an idol for me, really. And when I read his book and just saw that this kid had that dream, and there was going to be, he never wavered, he knew he had his compass set, right? And a lot of the people you just mentioned, they get their compass set. You have your compass set, which is how you got to where you're at today. And so I'm just encouraging everyone who's listening to have their compass set. And then something we can talk about too is other people in our lives, those that love us included in this, those that don't like us so much that are following us, which is kind of the haters category, right? They want to see us fail. But we have our compass set, and there's going to be people who don't agree with it, they don't align with it, or they're trying to say, like, you got to play it safer than that. Maybe you're 16 right now, you're just wrapping up high school in a couple of years, and you got this big dream, and everyone's telling you got to go to college, and you got to do this, you got to do that. And basically what the common denominator is of everyone in your culture and your community, but you want to be the shortstop of the New York Yankees. There's something within someone, and I'd love you to speak to this, John, is there's this thing, I call it like a threshold, that you're willing to take in life to get to your dream. And some people tap out after 1 year of failing. Some people it's 5 years. Some people it's 10 years of their journey, and they finally have to either pivot and there's some people that it doesn't matter. They're going to get hit in the face as many times as Mike Tyson, and he's going to keep going. Right? So talk about that. What is it that gives people that threshold or that passion? Or do you think that everybody can have it if they really had the right dream?
I think if you have the right dream and you do the right introspection, anyone can possess that superpower. But to me, what I think allows people to do that and prevents other people from doing it is how much you're either tuning into your inner voice or you're ignoring what it's telling you. And what I mean by that is, I think when we end up ignoring the inner voice, we end up living this life that might seem good on the outside, but we feel like we're letting ourselves down constantly on the inside. But when you really tune in to that problem that only you uniquely can solve, and it becomes the fuel that's driving you, I think you have this intrinsic motivation that even when these setbacks occur, it just keeps you going and striving to make that solving that problem become a reality.
And so on that line of thinking, let's give people, the idea of Mic'd Up is to bring people some actionable advice, things that they can take, wisdom from you, John, and a little bit from me. Sometimes I have a wisdom, a mic drop moment with some good wisdom, but it's really about you as the guest, the shining star of the episode here. And so you have your book, and there's 12 principles that are outlined, right? Can you just name a couple that come to mind to help people with this particular thing so they can really get launched in the right direction?
Yeah, so I tried to approach this with catchy names that people could remember for these points, because I don't want this to be just a book you read. I really created it to be something that you live. And so the way I organize the book is it has three parts. The first is mindset shifts, which you can think of as the why that we live our life. Behavior shifts are the second section, which is kind of the what. And then the third section, I call the psychology of progress, but it's really about the discipline of deliberate action, and that's the what and the where. And so the principles start with the concept of being a mission angler, and then they go from there to being a brand inventor, a mosquito auditor, a fear confronter, a perspective harnesser, and an action creator. And those make up the first 6 mindset shifts. But if we were going to just take one of those a little bit deeper, let's take the first one, mission angler. So I came up with this concept because I live here in Tampa Bay and love to fish, have access to doing it. But when I go out there and I want to catch fish, I don't just get in the boat, take my bait, whatever it may be, and go out 20 miles and hope that wherever I lay anchor, I'm going to catch fish. Typically, it's pretty methodical. You're looking at what type of fish you want to catch, what fish is in season, what are the tides, what's the moon phase, what type of bait do you want to take to be out there. Yet, the simple thing is, we don't apply that discipline to our own life and how we're crafting it. So at the core of this is really talking about this idea of life crafting, which is how do you become this future self that you aspire to be, and how do you start positioning yourself in the gains of life where you're able to start seeing the actions that you're taking and how they're propelling you forward from where you were to where you want to be.
Yeah, so good. The word propel, I think of an airplane. You're talking about fishing and having all the right elements together, and like you mentioned, the tide, the weather, the season, all these different things that go into it to calculate our best chances of success. Like a pilot, they have look at the size of the board that's in front of them, right? They have to calculate everything. Actually, for them to land, I'm sure you've heard this before, for them to land where they need to go, they actually have to be off by an excess of X or whatever it is. So then they know that whatever it is, the drift and all the stuff that they have to worry about as they're flying, if they want to land here, they have to be set up a little bit off, because then it's going to land them here. If they just go straight, they'll be 15 degrees off or whatever it is. So they have all those calculations to get to their desired point, that compass point I was talking about earlier with Jeter and all the other greats. And so that's, again, going back to what you're talking about, is laying these principles, these foundational principles in your book to help people get their compass. And then it's not just, there's the North Star, I'm looking at it, I'm dreaming about it, I'm meditating about it, I'm manifesting about it. It's really giving people these core things, like if you're going fishing, you got to know the tide, the time, the season, the type of fish, what kind of bait, what kind of line you're using, all that good stuff for you to have the best success. And a little fishing joke. With all that said, then the guy who's there for the first time, never put a line in the water, that's the guy who's going to catch the biggest fish that day for some reason. Right now, but that's always me. I always go out with people. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I get the best catch, right? Anybody who knows me knows that whenever I discover something that I genuinely love, I feel responsible to share that with the world. If it's great for me, if it's a personal experience that I just had a blast with, or it's been amazing, or I'm benefiting from it in any way, I really do feel responsible to share that with my friends, my family, mic'd up universe. It's my responsibility, I feel like, to make sure that I'm not the only one that's benefiting from it. So that's why I want to share something with you. It's not a secret anymore. I'm going to share this with you, that I recently have been able to increase my productivity. And that's something personally, as a business owner, it's super important to me. We all have 24 hours in a day, right? We try to sleep. I try to sleep 6 to 8 of those. And so during the day, I'm always trying to get the most done that I possibly can in a short window of time. And so what I recently discovered is called Magic Mind. Have you guys seen this stuff yet? Magic Mind Productivity Shot. Here's what I love about it. In this is nootropics, matcha, adaptogens, and vitamins. So those nootropics actually help with focus. Matcha, I love matcha green tea as it is. So this goes perfect with green tea because it has the matcha in it. That helps with energy. And then the adaptogens is less stress, right? You just keep drinking more coffee, which I used to do, just continue to chug coffee all day long. It was giving me more anxiety and adding to my stress levels. So the adaptogens in here help out with lowering the stress. And then it has vitamins in it as well for immunity. So all 4 of those are kind of the secret ingredients, not so secret as I just mentioned, and you get dialed in daily. And here's what's cool about it. I'm actually going to take it right now. You can see it's pretty small. It's literally a shot. And I can tell you, I've been in the deepest flow state that I think I've ever been in as a business owner, especially. I mean, it's been years since I feel like I can sit at my workstation, just lock in on email, on podcasting, on client work, on my team, right? And I just feel it's like I'm big into sports. You guys know I love football. It kind of feels like in the fourth quarter when everyone else is stressed out and trying to, the clock is ticking, we're running out of time, everybody's panicking, right? And that's when like the greats can kind of separate themselves. It's like that starts to feel like it's slowing down for me. So I get to do more things. I can think more clear. And all I'm doing, the only thing that's been different in the last couple of weeks is taking Magic Mind. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Boom. I just love it. First thing in the morning when I start working is take that productivity shot right there. But here's the deal. That flow state, the best way I can describe it, is something where I just feel locked in and a lot longer than usual. Like you might feel that way when you have your first cup of coffee and it wears off really quick. This stuff lasts for me hours, right? So I don't, and there's no crash for me. I'm just telling you my personal experience with it because I love it, because it's something that I have benefited from personally. I want to pass that along to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, go down into the description. If you're listening to the audio, go into the show notes and you'll see I have it linked right there. You guys can save 20% off. Then type in promo code MIKEDUP20, MIKED up 20, and you'll save 20% off. I want you guys to try it. Let me know what you think. I'm curious. Again, I've been taking this for a couple weeks now, and I just did a full order for their subscription model. You can do that as well, and when you do that, you save even more. All right, let's get back to the show. Diving right back in, John, I think this is a great conversation, and there's a lot of stuff here. It's been a little bit since we've dialed in this hard on like following your dreams. We talk about it a lot on Mic'd Up, but a lot of times it's more story-based, and we're getting into like the principles of it too, which I really appreciate. And you talk about the importance of embracing discomfort, right? And taking audacious risks, not safe ones, but these audacious risks to become passion struck. It's kind of the outline in the book, right? Can you share a time in your own life when you had to get comfortable with discomfort to reach a goal?
Yeah, well, I think there have been a ton of times that I've had to do that. But I'll just give a more recent example of it. I decided a couple years ago that I was going to do the 4x4x48 challenge, which is David Goggins' challenge that he does. If people aren't familiar with this, what you need to do is you end up running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So it's almost as if you're running 2 marathons in 2 days. But what makes it more difficult is these periods when you stop running and you have this downtime, you can get tight. You're really going to be sleep deprived, etc. So the preparation for this for me was pretty paramount because I wasn't just doing it on my own. I took a trip to Houston, Texas to help support the War Angels Foundation, Heroic Hearts Project, Vets, a couple nonprofits that were helping veterans overcome PTSD. And I knew that in addition to myself, there were going to be 60 special operators there from all the different communities, professional athletes, etc. So I knew I wanted to make a good showing. And so just like anything that you have to approach, you have to get your mind around how you're going to accomplish this goal. And for me, one of the most difficult things was I have terrible Achilles issues, and so it's very difficult for me to run. So wanting to complete something like this meant that I was going to have to give myself that stamina, yet not be on the ground. And so I ended up doing a ton of cycling to prepare for this, as well as other cardiovascular things, and then mentally ended up preparing myself by starting to intentionally sleep deprive myself so I knew what it would be like to function during those periods of time. So, I mean, that's just one example of having to put
Yeah.
yourself in a position where you know you're going to be uncomfortable, you want to perform, and you need to prepare to get there.
You're talking a high level of discomfort, physical discomfort, preparing your body in a way that you're going to be out of sorts with yourself from a sleep deprivation, um, physical, just being behind physically, just exhausted. And then, eh, you know, going into intense workout, right? It's not even a workout. I mean, it's how long is it? 48 hours?
It's 48 hours long, and what compounded this was
Yeah,
we had Native Americans there
it's crazy.
as well who were banging drums all night long. So it was really
So you
sleep
couldn't fall
deprived.
asleep.
It's very difficult.
A buddy of mine, another buddy of mine, Johnny Osmosis, I call him, but John Osberg, he's a Buffalo kid too. Just a great, awesome person, and he's done that too because he's followed the Goggins story, and that's a crazy. He's got a crazy story too because I know he's from Buffalo, as I just mentioned, but he's probably not super proud of it because his dad was abusive and it's a really rough upbringing, and the fact that he's doing well now, he's turned his life around. He's got this really incredible story, but yeah, talking about intense, it doesn't get more intense than David Goggins, right? So the fact that you were there doing that, so you mentioned Achilles. I mean, I don't want to assume you have a couple Achilles tears then. I mean, probably
Yeah, I
shouldn't have been
actually had them on
even
both.
jogging.
I actually had them
Both knees.
on both, well, both legs, yes. And I
Oh
think
my
I got them
God.
originally from doing Orange Theory classes and
Really?
just
Oh
too
boy.
much activity
That's
on
a
them.
Rochester connection, isn't it? The founder, I think, is from Rochester.
I think so.
We'd have to check that, but yeah, interesting. Another mutual friend of mine, I believe, interviewed her a couple years ago. But very interesting, dude. That's a great example. Putting yourself out there, doing something physically uncomfortable for the greater good. You knew that. So what was your main goal behind it? Why did you want to do that?
I wanted to lend support to organizations that had helped me, and also the two of the programs, Vets and Heroic Hearts, are really focused on psychedelic treatment plans for veterans who have tried all the other talk therapy and modalities, and it's just not working. And the interesting thing, I was quite skeptical before going into this, but what's pretty amazing is that normal talk therapy, whether it's cognitive processing therapy or prolonged exposure therapy, etc., has about a 30% efficacy. And they're finding that psilocybin and some of these other clinical trials that they're doing are producing 70 to 80% efficacy and permanent results. And so
Wow.
what was so interesting for me is you go into these situations, and oftentimes we feel like we have all these issues that we're experiencing from combat trauma or other things that we've been exposed to, and we're alone. And what I found was that 98% of us had the same exact symptoms if you looked at us. And it was just so great to see a group of people who were able to power through these intense bouts with trauma and come out of it better on the other side. And so I wanted to promote that so that we're not only helping 60 people, but we can help thousands of people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you had a mission that you were out there set to help awareness, right? So I'd say probably awareness was your number one reason to be out there to help these different organizations, and you did it. You were successful in that. That's awesome, man. So a lot of the entrepreneurs, early stagers that are getting started, they have a dream in their heart, right? They're the little kid dreaming about being the shortstop of the Yankees right now. And when I say little kid, that could be a college student that has the dream. I'm just saying, like, you're early on in your journey and you know where you want to go. You got your North Star picked out, but now we need to figure out how to get there. And I'll tell you what, you show me two people. One person is 100% gifted in talent. We see this a lot in athletics and sports. They're just massively talented. They're just more talented than everybody out there. But the guy standing or gal sitting or standing next to that other person who has a more disciplined lifestyle, more disciplined daily routine, more disciplined mindset, just a stronger heart, a stronger will, they might be less talented, but who are you going to take? Out of those two, if you had to pick two people in a draft, right? You get the top quarterback, your team needs a quarterback. You get the first pick or the second pick. It's the two best quarterbacks in the country. One guy's a little bit more talented on paper or even with the eyeball test, but the second person, you just studied him, right? I'm talking quarterbacks here. And they just got that it factor, that Tom Brady that nobody seemed to realize, and they picked him 199th overall. So on a practical level, John, to kind of put a bow on the episode today and let people who want this information walk away with some actionable things we can help them do, how can small micro choices in our daily lives, disciplines, lead to a more passionate purposeful life, really, over time? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to do is highlight someone I talk about in the book, which is Novak Djokovic. And if
Okay.
you would look in the exact scenario that you brought out, Roger
Mm-hmm.
Nadal, either
Rafa
Nadal,
Nadal. Yeah.
Rafael Nadal, or Roger would have, in everyone's mind, thought to have had more talent, more longevity,
Yeah.
better chance of becoming the best tennis player of all time. And I think when
Yeah.
Djokovic started out, he faced a whole bunch of internal barriers. But what he learned to do, which I think is what any of us can do, is he set his sight out on the dream that he wanted to accomplish, and he started to perfect himself with the micro choices that he started to undertake every single day. And in order to do it, he knew he needed to build out every aspect of his life. He knew he wasn't mentally strong, and so he had to get mentally tougher. And I remember hearing him on an interview talk about this, that people think I just became mentally tough overnight. And it wasn't that. It was the
Yeah.
micro choices that I constantly implemented that incrementally got me stronger, and I built upon it. Same thing with the physical
Yeah.
stamina. Same thing that he did with having the courage to be able to push through all the naysayers who were out there.
Yeah.
So to me, one of the most important pieces of advice I have is something that I really honed into during an interview I did with Jim McKelvey, who's founded Square. And we were talking about both our experience with mentoring entrepreneurs, and we were talking about why to your point, do these entrepreneurs who seem like they have this $1 billion idea fizzle out, and then this other who you might not have thought at the onset would have had the billion idea makes it? And the biggest differentiator is the one who ends up making it keeps the main thing the main thing. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is so often we find this problem that we're yearning to solve, yet over time we let all the distractions take us further and further away from making it the priority and solving it in our life, whatever that may be. And I think that is one of the biggest things for entrepreneurs to think about is once you find
Mhm.
that thing, um, you've got to double down on it. And even when things don't seem to be going the way you want it to, you need to double down on it even more. And it's the way you do that is in the constant micro choices that you make day in or day out.
Yeah. And going back to Djokovic too, I'm a big tennis fan. I got to see Nadal win the Rogers Cup probably 15 years ago when he was just breaking in onto the scene. Might have been closer to 20 years ago now, but just phenomenal. Him, Murray, right? Federer was kind of towards the end of his career at that point, and then Djokovic. So those are kind of the three or four. It was like the Mount Rushmore of that time. Great tennis, a lot of great tennis matches. But what he's talking about, like you said, is your brain is like, being the muscle of, like, we always talk about muscle reps for our biceps and for our lower half work. It's leg day. Well, what about brain day? What about, what I mean? Being more mentally tough. So when someone comes at you and they're talking to you on the court in between or whatever, they're trash talking to you in an interview, how do you not lash back right away and act maybe more immaturely, naturally, and to be more mentally tough is something that is practice. It's a muscle. It's there's reps behind it, right? You get stronger. I know you got to run. John, this has been a fantastic interview. I feel that we're going to I'd love to stay connected with you past the interview, of course, and continue to follow your journey. And we'll probably be working together. Maybe we'll be on sharing stages together at some point. I can feel your energy. I love you being on the show. I got one more for you here. It's not designed to be a curveball. I know if you get into your Jeter mindset right now, you'll hit it anyways. But think of it this way. I know you're an author of this fantastic book, Passion Struck. But in this example here, you're the author and the protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending. And God willing, you live a long and prosperous life. You're looking back on it, and you're reflecting right now. You get to define your legacy. What would that be?
My legacy would be, I hope my 2 kids who I wrote this book for read it and apply it in their own life so that the 2 of them can become passion struck. And if the 2 of them live lives where they end up becoming part of that 25% where they live the life they've always aspired to, then I feel like I've done my job as a parent.
That's incredible. Well, I love that you're so focused. We're just talking about being focused on, making the one thing. And the one thing in your life right now that you've been passion struck about is, funny enough, passion struck, right? And with the mind of keeping in mind your children. You're thinking about the 2 of them first, and then the millions of people that you're inspiring through your show, through your movement, through the book, in all different ways and things that you're involved on. Being a guest on this show right now, thank you for giving us your time and your energy and your insights, because it's valuable. And so you're on a movement right now, man. And what's cool about when I ask people that question about their legacy, right? Some people get uncomfortable and others already have it. Like it's just pressing a button. And yours is so easy to come to the top of your mind because this isn't something that you're going to wait to think about. You're already taking action on it. And I'm not surprised. And I just love your energy, man. This is great. I want to say congratulations on the success of your show. I know the grind and that you and I love doing our shows. And there's a lot of people tuning in that either are also hosts or they're looking to start a podcast. And I want you guys to see, like, if I can do it, John can do it. You can see the level of success. Him and I both started off with a few downloads on our first episode and look to where it can grow. Consistency, discipline, following our own heart and our North Star. John, thank you so much. Any last words you'd like to share with the audience before you run?
Mike, it was an honor being here, and my purpose for being here is to serve the audience. And so I want all of you to become passion struck. And I hope I gave you a great teaser. I'm telling you, if you follow the principles in this book, you can create the life that you've always aspired to do. And that is my heartfelt wish for everyone.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, you did do that today. You're great at it. I always tell everybody, be great and be grateful. John, I'm grateful for you and your time today. Thank you so much for sharing that with the audience. You're the man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Keep